Hey, Lance here, and I'm back with part 2 in my video series on how to put together an action plan to slow, stop, or reverse aging. I know that putting together a comprehensive action plan is complex, confusing, and time-consuming, but in this video series, I break down the process by identifying 4 primary components and several secondary elements of that plan. As I mentioned in the first video, those 4 components are to optimize hormone health, lose weight, exercise, and eat good food to support this plan. Now, if you haven't watched that video, I put links to it, as well as the rest of the videos in this series, in the description below. Now, in this video, I deal with the first element of that plan, optimizing your hormone health. I'll be talking about the roles that hormones play in aging, how to get your levels tested, and what constitutes normal, and the importance of optimizing, not normalizing, your levels. Like I've said, the first and foremost of these components is optimizing your hormone health. The role that hormones, or rather the lack thereof, play in the aging process is huge. If you look at the symptoms of low testosterone and compare them to the symptoms of aging, they're identical. Reduced muscle mass and bone density, lowered libido, erectile dysfunction, hair loss, difficulty sleeping, a decrease in energy levels, and an increase in body fat, all caused by low T. And for far too long, it's been taken for granted that as men age, their testosterone levels will drop and that they'll eventually suffer from the symptoms of low T. It's a given that very low testosterone levels are considered normal for an aging man. There are a lot of givens for an aging man. While it's a given that he'll have lower testosterone levels, it's also a given that he'll have lower human growth hormone levels, that he'll get fat, that he'll lose muscle mass. It's just a part of the aging process. But I don't believe it has to be that way. There are a lot of things that you can do to turn back the clock, but none of them is more important than optimizing your hormone health. And the first thing that you need to do is to find out what your testosterone levels are currently. Go to your doctor or go to a lab or order a blood test online, but get your testosterone levels checked and then track your testosterone levels over time. And because different labs use different reference ranges, you need to be consistent with the lab that you use so that your results will always be using the same reference range. And what is a reference range? Labs have different measurement systems. For example, nanograms per deciliter is a typical one. But because of the different testing methodologies that different labs use, even within a similar measuring system, labs will have different results for what they consider normal. Normal is usually a result that ranges from a low measurement to a high measurement. And the term reference range is the range of normal measurements for a particular lab and the measuring methodologies that they use. So, different labs have different reference ranges, and comparing different labs and different reference ranges is like comparing apples to oranges. So I use a lab with a reference range of 264 to 919 nanograms per deciliter. That means that anything below 264 is considered by my lab to indicate a clinically low testosterone level, and anything above 919 is considered to be above normal. A recent study that I read stated that only 2.5% of all men have less than 250 nanograms per deciliter, and only 2.5% of all men have more than 1,000. That means that roughly 95% of all men have testosterone levels that fall within the normal range, and that only 2.5% of all men have low T. Now that represents the current thinking of a lot of the medical community. But that range was established by looking at the testosterone levels of your average young, middle-aged, and senior men. Young men had levels that were in the high normal range, 700 to 950 nanograms per deciliter. Middle-aged men had levels that were in the middle normal range, 400 to 700. And senior men had levels that were in the low normal range, 250 to 400. So the normal range is from 250 to 950. That's a huge range, and it's indicative of the problem. The reference range for normal was established by looking at what a statistically high percentage of men of all ages had as a T level over the course of their lives. And it doesn't really take into account the fact that T levels decline as men age. It also doesn't take into account the effect of low T on the male body and what can happen when testosterone isn't present in sufficient amounts. And given that a lot of the effect of low T are the same as the effects of aging, it feels like it's a no-brainer that getting your testosterone levels back up to where they need to be is a basic tenet of anti-aging, of turning back the clock. And where exactly do they need to be? That's a good question. I've read studies that suggest that 600 to 800 nanograms per deciliter is optimal. Others that suggest 500 to 1,000. Now, personally, I feel that the higher the better, with a minimum of 600 nanograms per deciliter. But really, optimally, I would say more like 750. When optimizing your hormone health, human growth hormone is another hormone that needs to be optimized. Now, fortunately, many of the same practices that will raise your testosterone levels will also raise your human growth hormone levels. Also, when optimizing your hormone health, my recommendation is that you do it naturally rather than having hormone replacement therapy. In the last 2 years, using only natural testosterone boosting methods, I have almost tripled my testosterone levels from 350 nanograms per deciliter to 950. Okay, I think I'm going to put a pin in it right here and continue in the next video in this series. In that video, I'll be dealing with the second and third components of an action plan, weight loss and nutrition. In the fourth video in this series, I'll wrap it all up by covering the final component, exercise, as well as dealing with secondary elements by suggesting strategies for improving these aspects of your health as an aging man. If you enjoyed this video, then please subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends and on your social media, hit the like button and leave a comment, and be sure to hit the bell to be notified when I post a new video, which should be every Tuesday, with bonus videos on the occasional Friday. And as always, thank you so much for watching.